What if everything you believed about meaning, purpose, and the order of life was an illusion? What if, beneath all the routines, ambitions, and whispered hopes, there was nothing but silence, an indifferent universe deaf to your desires? Albert Camus, the philosopher of the absurd, asks us a terrifying question. If life has no inherent meaning, why not end it? This is the problem of suicide, and it stands at the heart of his existentialism. But Camus does not pose this question to lead us into despair. Instead, he challenges us to confront the absurd, the contradiction between our longing for meaning and a universe that provides none. It's in this tension, this absurd struggle, that Camus sees the raw essence of existence. The moment we recognize this absurdity, we are faced with a choice: to escape, to surrender, or to rebel. But what does it mean to rebel against the absurd? And how can we live without meaning yet still find joy? Camus offers us an answer, not in religious faith or philosophical optimism, but in something more radical, more defiant. He offers us Sisyphus. Imagine a man trapped in an eternal cycle. Each day, he rolls a massive boulder up a mountain, his muscles straining, his breath heavy. And just when he reaches the top, when it seems like all his effort might amount to something, the rock slips from his grasp and tumbles back down to where he started. Without question, without hesitation, he walks back down and begins again. This is Sisyphus, condemned by the gods to perform the most meaningless task imaginable for eternity. If there is a more perfect image of absurdity, it's hard to find. But here's where things get interesting. Most people hear the story of Sisyphus and see only suffering. They imagine despair, exhaustion, maybe even madness. But Camus saw something completely different. He saw freedom. Let's pause here for a second, because this is where Camus challenges everything we assume about life. We are taught from childhood that meaning is something we must find, that our purpose exists somewhere out there, a grand design, a destiny waiting for us to uncover. Religions offer faith. Philosophers offer logic. Society offers career paths and family structures and traditions, all wrapped in the promise that if we follow the rules, we will find purpose. But what if that's all an illusion? Camus argues that the universe is silent. There is no divine script, no cosmic order, no deeper reason behind why we are here. And if that's true, then searching for meaning is like asking a stone to explain itself. It will never answer. At this point, many people would fall into despair. If life has no meaning, why go on? But this is exactly where Camus introduces his most powerful idea, revolt. And who embodies this revolt better than Sisyphus? The moment of defiance. Let's return to our hero. After centuries of pushing that rock, Sisyphus must have realized something. He would never win. He would never finish his task, never be free of his burden. And yet, despite this, he does not break. He does not beg the gods for mercy. He does not collapse in despair. Instead, he accepts his fate. And in that moment, something profound happens. Sisyphus becomes more powerful than the gods who condemned him. The gods wanted him to suffer. But if he refuses to suffer, if he embraces the absurdity of his existence and keeps pushing that rock with full awareness of its futility, then he robs them of their power over him. They cannot control his mind. And that's why Camus delivers one of the most shocking, revolutionary lines in philosophy. One must imagine Sisyphus happy. At first, this seems insane. Happy? How could a man condemned to endless, meaningless labor possibly be happy? But Camus argues that happiness isn't found in some grand purpose. It isn't waiting at the top of the mountain. It is found in the rebellion itself, the decision to live without illusions, to face the absurd head-on, and keep going anyway. What this means for you, this isn't just an abstract philosophical concept. It's something deeply relevant to your own life. Think about the things we struggle for, the careers we chase, the relationships we long for, the dreams we pursue, all in the hope that they will give us some ultimate fulfillment. But what if, like Sisyphus rock, these things will always roll back down? How many times have you thought, if I could just get that job, then I'd be happy, only to feel empty once you get it? How often have you thought, if I could just be with that person, everything would make sense, only to realize relationships don't magically fix us? This is the absurd condition of human existence. We crave meaning, but the universe offers none. So what do? We have two choices. 1. Despair. Give in to the meaninglessness, fall into depression, stop trying. 2. Revolt. Accept the absurd, laugh in its face, and keep living anyway. Camus tells us that the only rational choice is the second one, to embrace the absurdity and live. not because life has meaning, but because we choose to live it on our own terms. The absurd hero in the modern world. The idea of embracing the absurd isn't just an ancient Greek myth. It's everywhere around us. Think about great artists, writers, or even everyday people who seem to live with unshakable passion, despite knowing that life is fleeting. They don't wait for meaning to be handed to them. They create it themselves. The artist paints, not because they expect their work to last forever, but because the act of creating is enough. The writer fills pages, knowing that all stories end, but they write anyway. The athlete trains, knowing that one day their body will fail, but they run, they fight, they push. The ordinary worker wakes up, makes coffee, goes to work, comes home, not because there is some divine reason behind it all, but because life is the act of living itself. And in this, they all become like Sisyphus, rolling the rock, not because they expect to win, but because they refuse to surrender. Camus' final message. Camus doesn't tell us that life is easy. In fact, he does the opposite. He forces us to confront one of the hardest truths. Life has no given meaning. But rather than seeing this as a tragedy, he sees it as liberation. If there is no predetermined purpose, then we are free to create our own. If there is no cosmic order, then we are free to build our own values. If nothing truly matters in the grand scheme of things, then we are free to enjoy the small, fleeting, beautiful moments of life without burdening them with expectations. This is the absurd hero's triumph, knowing the truth and living anyway. And that is the ultimate act of rebellion. Here's the real question. If life has no inherent meaning, why do we spend so much time searching for it? Look around. Everywhere you turn, someone is offering you an answer. Religions promise salvation. Society offers career paths and milestones. Love tells you that the right person will make everything fall into place. It's comforting, isn't it? The idea that if you just follow the right steps, life will reward you. But Camus saw through this illusion. He argued that humans are addicted to meaning. We crave it, the way a gambler craves certainty in a game rigged against him. We want to believe that our struggles will pay off, that suffering has a purpose, that the universe isn't just a vast, indifferent void. And yet, the moment we stop and truly examine the world, we see something terrifying. There are no guarantees. A good person may suffer while a cruel one thrives. Love can be deep and passionate, and still end. You can spend your whole life working for something, only to realize it wasn't what you wanted. This is the absurd condition. We demand meaning from a universe that gives us none. And here's where Camus gives us his most unsettling challenge. If we know that life is absurd, how do we live without falling into despair? The answer, he says, is not to run from the absurd, but to embrace it. To reject false hopes. To see the chaos for what it is. To live, not because there is meaning, but because we decide to live anyway. But that's easier said than done. After all, can you truly let go of the search for meaning? Or will you keep looking for something, anything, to convince yourself that life is more than just a beautifully tragic accident? At this point, you might be asking, if life has no inherent meaning, if everything is absurd, then what's left? Are we just supposed to wander through life aimlessly, pretending to be happy? Camus would say no, not at all. In fact, he argues that once you accept the absurd, you actually become free. But what does that really mean? The illusion of hope and the power of choice. Let's break it down. Most people live trapped in what Camus calls hope. Not hope in the everyday sense, like hoping for good weather or hoping to ace a test, but a much deeper illusion. It's the belief that meaning is just around the corner, that someday we'll find the answer that makes life click. You might recognize this feeling. Once I get that dream job, I'll finally feel fulfilled. When I meet the right person, everything will make sense. One day, I'll understand my purpose. But Camus warns that this kind of hope is a trap. It keeps us running in circles, always reaching for something just beyond our grasp, convinced that happiness lies somewhere in the future instead of right here, right now. So what happens if you stop chasing illusions? Embracing the absurd equals embracing freedom. Camus argues that the moment you stop looking for external meaning, you gain something far greater, the ability to create your own. Think about it. If there is no divine plan, no fate, no cosmic justice system, then the only meaning in life is the meaning you choose to give it. You are completely free to decide how you want to live. This isn't a depressing realization, it's an empowering one. You are not bound by society's expectations. You don't have to live for some imagined reward. You don't have to spend your days searching for something that doesn't exist. Instead, you can fully experience life, moment by moment, because you are no longer waiting for something more. And this is where Camus gives us one of his most powerful ideas: the absurd man. The one who lives without illusions, the absurd man, is the person who fully embraces the absurd and refuses to escape it. He doesn't turn to religion for comfort. He doesn't numb himself with distractions. He doesn't search for grand meaning in things that don't have it. Instead, he simply lives, on his own terms, guided by his own desires, fully aware that everything he does is temporary but choosing to do it anyway. And this is where we return to Sisyphus. While we must imagine Sisyphus happy, Sisyphus pushes the rock not because he expects a reward, not because he believes it will lead to some greater purpose, but because it is his struggle. He owns it. He is aware of the absurdity of his task, and that very awareness makes him powerful. The moment he accepts his fate instead of resisting it, the punishment loses its sting. And here's the key. Once you stop fighting against life's absurdity and start embracing it, you become free. Think about your own life. What if you stopped looking for meaning in the future and instead focused on living fully in the present? What if you stopped waiting for something to make life worth it, and instead just decided that life was already worth living? This is the ultimate rebellion against the absurd, choosing to live even when there is no reason to. So, what will you choose? Camus leaves us with a challenge. Now that you know the truth, that life has no inherent meaning, that there are no guarantees, no cosmic rewards, what will you do with that knowledge? Will you fall into despair, wishing for meaning that isn't there? Or will you embrace the absurd, claim your freedom, and live your life on your terms? Because at the end of the day, the rock will always roll back down. The question is, will you keep pushing it anyway? Part 5. The Final Rebellion, Living Without Appeal. So we've reached the final question, the one Camus leaves us with after tearing down every illusion of meaning, hope, and order. Now that you know the universe is indifferent, now that you understand life has no predetermined purpose, what do? Most philosophies, when faced with this kind of existential emptiness, try to offer a way out, a system of values, a moral code, a reason to keep going. But Camus does something shocking. He offers nothing. No safety net. No comforting lie. Just you, standing alone in a universe that does not care. And in that moment, you have a choice. Living without appeal. Camus uses a phrase that might sound strange at first. He tells us to live without appeal. What does that mean? It means refusing to seek outside validation for your existence. It means not looking to gods, fate, society, or anyone else to justify your life. It means rejecting the idea that you need to be saved by something greater, because nothing greater is coming. Instead, Camus argues, the ultimate act of rebellion is simply to live for the sake of living. To wake up each day, knowing full well that life is absurd, and to keep going anyway. How the absurd man lives. The absurd hero does not seek meaning in suffering. He does not chase happiness like a prize at the end of some long journey. He does not follow rules imposed by systems designed to control him. Instead, he embraces the absurd. He does what excites him, what fascinates him, what makes him feel alive, not because it matters in some cosmic sense, but because it is the only thing that is real. A few key principles emerge from this. Experience everything. If nothing matters in the grand scheme, then everything matters in the moment. Absurd heroes live fully, without holding back. Create your own values. If there is no higher purpose, then you are free to decide what gives your life meaning, whether it's art, adventure, love, or something no one else understands. A laugh at the void. The universe does not care, but that doesn't mean you can't enjoy it. The absurd man laughs in the face of meaninglessness, turning what could be despair into joy. What this means for you if you've ever felt lost, unsure of what you're supposed to do, overwhelmed by the pressure to find meaning. Camus is telling you to let it go. You don't have to justify your existence to anyone. You don't have to live for some unseen reward. You are free to simply be. And that is the final, ultimate rebellion. The rock rolls on, and so do you. Camus leaves us with Sisyphus, our absurd hero, forever pushing his rock. The struggle never ends. The rock always rolls back. Life does not suddenly become easy or make sense. But in that moment, when Sisyphus turns, walks back down the mountain, and places his hands on the rock once more, he is free. He has embraced his fate, accepted the absurd, and chosen to live anyway. And if Sisyphus can do it, so can you. The final thought. So, what do we take away from all of this? Camus doesn't give us easy answers, he gives us a choice. Reject the absurd and live in illusion, or embrace it and live freely. The moment you stop searching for some grand meaning and start creating your own, you become truly alive. Sisyphus is happy, not because his struggle ends, but because he owns it. And that's the key. Life will always be uncertain, unpredictable, and absurd. The question is, will you fight it? Or will you embrace it and keep pushing forward? If you found this video interesting, there's more to explore. Check out my other videos on existentialism, stoicism, and the hidden psychology of human nature. And if you want to dive deeper into the ideas that shape the way we live, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what's coming next. Until next time, embrace the absurd and live on your own terms.